Late one night, the mystery machine rattled down a fog-choked highway after the gang picked up a frantic radio bulletin about a string of murders in a nearby city. The broadcast crackled through static. Young women found with their throats slashed, bodies left in places that made no sense. The killings had started years ago, then suddenly stopped. Now they were back. Worse. Fred turned the volume down slowly. No one joked. Not even Shaggy. Scooby's ears drooped. Ruh-roh. They rolled into the city just before dusk. It wasn't a big place, old brick buildings, flickering streetlights, a river that cut through town like a scar. They met with one of the victims' mothers in a small, dim living room that smelled like stale perfume and grief. Her daughter had vanished after leaving her shift at a diner. Found 2 days later behind an abandoned textile warehouse. The police say it's the same man from years ago, the mother whispered. He takes them when they're alone. Always alone. Velma adjusted her glasses. The pattern stopped for almost a decade. That's unusual for a spree killer unless he was incarcerated or waiting. Waiting for what? Daphne asked softly. The woman's eyes flicked toward the dark window. For us to forget. That night, the gang stopped at a roadside diner, the same one the last victim had worked at. The place was nearly empty. Neon lights buzzed overhead. A jukebox played an old love song distorted by scratches. The waitress kept glancing toward the restroom hallway, like she expected something to come crawling out. They sat in a booth near the window, whispering theories. Like maybe the killer works here. Shaggy muttered. Fred shook his head. Or he watches from somewhere close. Somewhere he can see who leaves alone. Daphne forced a small smile. I'm just going to use the restroom. The hallway lights flickered as she walked down. The women's bathroom door creaked when she pushed it open. Inside, the hum of fluorescent bulbs buzzed too loud. The mirrors were slightly warped, reflecting her in stretched, distorted shapes. She locked the stall behind her. A minute passed. Then she heard the door open. Velma, she called lightly. No response. Her heartbeat quickened. She finished quickly and stepped out of the stall. The bathroom looked empty. 3 stalls. 3 sinks. 1 long mirror. Everything still. She pulled a small pocket knife from her purse. Just in case. She checked the first stall empty. Second empty. Third. The stall door slowly swung inward on its own. Empty. Her breath fogged slightly in the colding. That's when the lights cut out. Total darkness swallowed the room. Daphne gasped, backing toward the door. Something shifted behind her. A hand ice cold and impossibly strong wrapped around her mouth. Her knife clattered to the tile floor. She tried to scream. There was a wet slicing sound. The lights flickered back on. The bathroom was empty again. Back at the booth, Fred frowned. She's been gone a while. Velma glanced at her watch. Statistically speaking, that exceeds normal restroom time. Like that's not funny, Velma. They got up together. The hallway felt colder now. Fred pushed the bathroom door open and froze. Daphne lay on the tile floor, eyes wide, staring at nothing. Red pooled beneath her, creeping toward the drain. The mirror above the sinks had a single word smeared across it in blood. Alone. Scooby whimpered. Velma dropped to her knees beside Daphne, hands shaking. No, 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 no. Fred's face hardened in a way none of them had ever seen before. We're ending this. The police questioned them for hours. No one had seen anyone enter or leave the diner. The security cameras. Static during the exact time Daphne was in the restroom. That night, the gang refused to leave the city. They studied old case files in their motel room. victim had one thing in common beyond being alone. They had all been watched beforehand. Witnesses remembered a tall man lingering nearby, always wearing a dark coat, face never clearly seen. "Like that's not a lot to go on," Shaggy whispered. Velma didn't answer. She was staring out the motel window. Across the street, beneath a flickering street lamp, stood a tall figure in a dark coat, watching. Her breath caught. When she blinked, he was gone. The next day, they split up despite every instinct telling them not to. Fred and Shaggy went to the abandoned textile warehouse. Scooby stayed glued to Shaggy's leg. Velma insisted on revisiting the diner alone to check something about the bathroom's electrical panel. Fred argued. Velma didn't budge. "It's daylight," she said. "He operates at night." That assumption would be her mistake. The diner was closed for cleaning. The owner let her in reluctantly. She walked down the same hallway Daphne had. The air felt heavy. She knelt near the breaker panel, behind a maintenance door. The wiring had been tampered with. Someone could kill the lights remotely. "Jinkies," she whispered. The hallway behind her creaked. She stood slowly. "Hello." No answer. The lights flickered once, twice, then went out. Velma fumbled for her phone flashlight. It blinked on, casting a weak cone of light. At the end of the hallway stood the tall figure, closer than she expected. His face was wrong, stretched in shadow, features indistinct like the mirrors had been. "You shouldn't have come back," he rasped. Velma tried to run. He was faster. Her scream echoed once before being cut short. When Fred, Shaggy, and Scooby arrived minutes later after finding evidence at the warehouse, tying the old crimes to a former textile worker, the diner door was ajar. The hallway lights were on, too bright. Fred ran to the bathroom first out of instinct. "Empty." Shaggy called Velma's name, voice breaking. They found her behind the counter, glasses cracked. Still, Scooby let out a long broken howl. 2 graves were dug that week. The murders stopped again. No suspect was ever caught. Years later, Fred and Shaggy stopped driving the mystery machine. They never spoke about that city. But sometimes, when passing through small towns late at night, they'd hear radio static break into a faint whisper. Alone, and in the reflection of the windshield, a tall man in a dark coat would be standing just far enough behind them, watching.